Bonjour. In this grammar presentation, we're going to talk about adjective agreement so that you can recognize adjective agreement. In French, adjectives have to agree with the person or the thing they describe, meaning that there is a specific form to use depending on whether the adjective describes a man, masculine, a woman, feminine, or non-binary person, non-binary, a masculine or feminine noun, one person, one thing, singular, or several persons, several things, plural. Let's talk about the masculine and feminine forms of adjective. So to form the feminine form of regular adjectives, you simply add an E at the end of the adjective. Let's talk about masculine and feminine forms. So to form the feminine form of regular adjectives, you simply add an E at the end of the adjective. Compare Théo est américain, Eulalia est américaine. So, who is American in the first sentence? Theo. So Theo is a male, so you're going to use the masculine form. Eulalia est américaine. Who's American? Eulalia. Eulalia identifies as a female, so you're going to use the feminine form. Américain is a regular adjective, so you simply need to add an E to make the adjective feminine. Note that if the masculine singular form of the adjective ends with an E, you do not need to add an extra E to form the feminine form. For instance, Belge, Belgian, ends with an E, so you can use it for the masculine form, like Théo est belge, or as well as for the feminine form, Eulalia est belge, so you do not need to add an extra E at the end of belge. To form the non-binary form, you write a dot before the extra E needed to form the feminine. For instance, américain, to make it feminine, you add an E. So to have the non-binary form, you write américain dot E. If the adjective ends with an E, like Belge, you do not need to do it. So Belge can be used to refer to non-binary people. Note that some adjectives are irregular in the sense that you do not simply add an E. So you will have to memorize their regular feminine forms. Here are two examples. Il est coréen. The feminine form of coréen is coréenne with two N and an E. Same thing, il est vietnamien. The feminine form will be vietnamienne with two hands and an E. Application 1. Determine the form of the adjective. If unsure, check the vocabulary list, origin, and identities to find the forms. So as a reminder, if the masculine form of the adjective ends with an E, it can be used for both the masculine and feminine form. If the masculine form does not end with an E, then you need to add an E to make the feminine form. You can now pause the video and do the exercise. Belge ends with an E as a masculine form, so it can be used for both the masculine and feminine form. Française, the masculine form is français, so with an extra E, this is a feminine form. Allemand, Allemand ends with a consonant, so this is a masculine form. Congolais, Congolais ends with consonant, so it's going to be the masculine form. Espagnol, Espanol in the masculine form ends with an L, so this is the feminine form. Russe, Russe in the masculine form ends with an E, so this is both the masculine and feminine form. Let's now talk about the singular and plural forms of adjectives. So to form the plural form of regular adjectives, you simply add an S at the end of the adjectives. For instance, Peter et John sont américains, Marie et Judy sont américaines. Note that if the masculine singular form of the adjective ends with an S, you do not need to add an extra S to form the masculine plural form. For instance, Pierre est français, français ends with an S, Pierre et Jean sont français, so you do not need here to add an extra S after the S of français. Note, however, that in the feminine, you will have to add this extra S. Marie et Julie sont françaises. To form the plural non-binary form, you write a dot before and after the extra E needed to form the feminine form, and you finally write your S. For instance, Morgan et Sam sont américains, américaines. So you're going to write the masculine form américain, dot E, and dot plural. Note that the plural S is silent, unlike the plural S in English. Américain and américain are consequently pronounced the same. Application 2, determine the form of the adjective. If unsure, check the vocabulary lists, origins, and identities to find the forms. So remember that if the adjective ends with an S in the singular, it can be used for both the singular and plural form. If not, with an S, it's going to be the plural form. Without, it's going to be the singular form. Espagnol ends with an L in the singular form. So here we have the plural form. Congolais ends with an S. So this is both the singular and plural form. Allemand does not end with an S. So this is a singular form. Belge does not end with an S. So this is a singular form. Anglais ends with an S in the singular form, so it can be used for both the singular and plural form. Then Sénégalaise, Sénégalais in the singular form masculine. Here an E is added for the feminine form, and we add an extra S for the plural form, so this is a plural form. Adjective agreement with subject pronouns. So when used after the verb être, adjectives agree with the subject pronoun. So for instance, il is masculine singular, so you're going to use the masculine singular form. Il est américain, he's American. Elle is feminine singular, so you're going to use the feminine singular form. Elle est américaine, she's American. Yel is non-binary singular, so you're going to use the non-binary singular form, américain, américaine. Yel est américain, américaine. Il is masculine plural, so you're going to use the masculine plural form. Ils sont américains, they are American. Elle is feminine plural, so you're going to use the feminine plural form. Elles sont américaines, they are American. Yel is non-binary plural, so you're going to use a non-binary plural form, américain, américaine. Yels sont américains, américaines. They are American. With je and nous, if you identify as a man, you use the masculine form. If you identify as a woman, you use the feminine form. And if you identify as non-binary, you use the non-binary form. Okay? Note that for nous, it also depends on the group of person. If the majority is masculine, you use the masculine form. If the majority is feminine, you use the feminine form, and so on. So if je refers to masculine singular person, you're going to use the masculine singular form. Je suis américain, I'm American. If je refers to feminine singular, you're going to use the feminine singular form, américaine. Je suis américaine, I'm American. If je refers to a non-binary person, you're going to use the non-binary singular form. Je suis américain, américaine. So if nous refers to mostly male identifying people, you're going to use the masculine plural form, nous sommes américains. If nous refers mainly to people who identify as female, you're going to use the feminine plural form, nous sommes américaines, we are American. And if nous refers mostly to non-binary people, you're going to use the non-binary form, américain, américaine, nous sommes américains, américaines. This rule is also true for tu and vous. You use the form depending on whether you address a man, a woman, or a non-binary person, a single person, or a group. So if you address to a person who identifies as a male, you use the masculine singular form, tu es américain. You use the feminine singular form américaine if you address to someone who identifies as a female, tu es américaine. And you use the non-binary form if you address to someone who identifies as non-binary. Tu es américain, américaine. The same also applies for vous. If you talk to a group of mostly male-identifying people, you're going to use the masculine plural form, vous êtes américain. If you talk to a group of mostly female-identifying people, you're going to use the feminine plural form, vous êtes américaine. And finally, if you address to a group of people who mostly identify as non-binary, you're going to use the non-binary plural form, américain, américaine. When using the formal vous to address one person, you're going to use basically the singular form. So if you address to someone who identifies as male, you're going to use the masculine singular form, vous êtes américain. If you address to someone who identifies as a female, you're going to use the feminine form, vous êtes américaine. And finally, if you address to someone who identifies as non-binary, you're going to use the non-binary form of the adjective américain, américaine. Application 3, identify the adjective forms that agree. You can now pause the video and do the application exercise. Il is masculine singular, so you're going to use the masculine singular form, that is Belge. You cannot use Belge with an S because this is a plural form. Elle is feminine singular, so you need to use the feminine singular form of the adjective, that is française. So this is the masculine form is français, ending with an S. So to make it feminine singular, you just need to add an E, and it makes it française. Yell is non-binary singular, so you need to use the non-binary singular form of the adjective, which is espagnol. So you use the masculine form espagnol, you add a dot, and then you add an E to make it the non-binary form of the adjective espagnol. Ils sont. Yell is non-binary plural, so you need to use the non-binary form of the adjective, which is here russe with an S. Russe in the masculine form ends with an E, so it can be used as the masculine, feminine, and non-binary form. And in the plural, you need to add an extra S. Ils sont. Il is masculine plural, so you need to find the masculine plural form, which is here anglais. So anglais ends with an S, so it's both the masculine singular form, but also the plural masculine form. You don't need to add an extra S at the end of anglais that already ends with an S in the singular masculine form. Elles sont, elle is feminine plural, so you need to find the feminine plural form of the adjective, which is allemande. So allemand in the masculine singular end with a D. So to make it feminine, you add an E, and to make it plural, you add an S, and you add the form allemande, which is feminine plural. Exercice 1. Écoutez et déterminez si l'adjectif est masculin, féminin ou si c'est impossible à déterminer. Ensuite, écrivez l'adjectif. Listen and determine if the adjective is masculine, feminine, or if it's impossible to tell. Then write down the adjective. Remember that you cannot tell if an adjective is masculine or feminine if it ends with an E. Do not worry if you struggle too much with this exercise. Remember that this is just an introduction to adjective agreement, and this exercise just provides you with practice. 1. Française. Française. Française is feminine. Répétez, française. 2. Français. Français. Français is masculine. Répétez, français. 3. Allemand. Allemand. Allemand is masculine. Repeat, allemand. 4. Allemande. Allemande is feminine. Répétez, allemande. 5. Américaine. Américaine. Américaine is feminine. Répétez, américaine. 6. Américain. Américain. Américain is masculine. Répétez, américain. 7. Russe. Russe. Russe ends with an E, so it's impossible to tell. Répétez, russe. 8. Canadien. Canadien. Canadien is masculine. Répétez, canadien. 9. Canadienne. Canadienne. Canadienne is féminine. Répétez, canadienne. 10. Suisse. Suisse. Suisse ends with an E, so it's impossible to tell. Répétez, Suisse. Exercice 2. Déterminer le genre et le nombre de l'adjectif. Determine the gender and the number of the adjective. So remember, if the masculine singular form of the adjective ends with an E, you cannot tell the gender, and if the masculine singular form of the adjective ends with an S, you cannot tell the number. Français. The masculine singular form of français ends with an S. So here you do not have an extra E, so you know it's masculine. And because the masculine singular form ends with an S, you cannot tell if it's singular or plural. Anglaise. The masculine singular form of anglaise is anglais. Here you have an extra E, which makes it feminine, and you also have an S, which makes it plural. Chinois. The masculine singular form ends with an S, chinois. There is no extra E, so you know it's masculine. And because the masculine singular form ends with an S, you cannot tell if it's singular or plural. Belge. The masculine singular form of Belge ends with an E, so you cannot tell if it's masculine or feminine. There is an extra S, so you know it's plural. Coréenne. The masculine singular form of the adjective is coréen. Coréen is an irregular adjective, so the feminine version takes an N and an E. So you know this is feminine. There is an extra S, you know it's plural. Chrétien. The masculine version of chrétien is chrétien, so you know this is masculine. There is no extra S, you know this is singular. Homosexuel. The masculine singular form of homosexuel ends with EL. You have an extra L and an E, which makes it feminine. There is no S, you know this is singular. Handicapé. The masculine singular form of handicapé ends with the E accent aigu. You have an extra E, which makes it feminine, and you have an S, which makes it plural. Transgenre. The masculine singular version of transgenre ends with an E, so you cannot tell if it's masculine or feminine. There is an S, which makes it plural. Africain, the masculine singular form of Africain ends with an N. There is no extra E, so you know it's masculine. And there is an S, which makes it plural. And if you have questions, feel free to write them in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer them. Au revoir!